In the diversification of life, we will be discussing about an alternative top 8 steps. In the previous topic, we have discussed about the 10 adaptations, but we have 8 steps to the diversification of life as well. In a biologically oriented presentation, John Maynard Smith and yours Zath Mary in 1997 identified 8 major steps from the origin of life to human societies with language. So, what are the top 8 steps which led to the species diversity or the diversification of life that we see today? So the first step was replicating molecules. So at some point in the Precambrian era, there were some molecules which were replicating themselves. The first objects with the properties of multiplication, variation, and heredity were probably replicating molecules similar to RNA, but have simpler and capable of replication. And these simpler molecules led to the little bit complex RNAs, and those RNAs led to some other molecules, and then the whole as a whole form the cells. So we have discussed these things in earlier topics. So, but this was the first step in the view of these scientists. And then there are the independent replicators. These in existing organism, replicating molecules or genes are linked together end to end to form chromosomes. So there are some independent replicators as well. So earlier molecules they combined together and replicated, but here these were some organisms. We are not sure to call them an organisms yet, but there were some entities. They were independent replicators. That means they could replicate themselves independently. And then there comes the RNA as gene and enzyme. So we have discussed that in earlier topics as well. In modern organism, there is a division of labor between two classes of molecule, nucleic acids, that is DNA and RNA, and that store and transmit information, and proteins. The proteins include enzymes and also the proteins that make the human body. So there are two type of molecules. One are the nucleic acids, another one are the proteins. The DNA and RNA, these are the for the transmission of information from one generation to the next generation. And then there is a step 4, which are eukaryotes and organelles. So the prokaryotes were the earlier organisms, and they developed some nuclei, and they became much more advanced eukaryotes. And they had certain division of labor among their internal cellular structure, and we call them organelles. So prokaryotes lack a nucleus and have usually a single circular chromosome. And eukaryote have a nucleus containing rod-shaped chromosomes and organelles. So this is a step 4 in which the life has progressed from RNA to the eukaryotes and organelles. And the 5 is the sexual reproduction, a process of sexual reproduction in which the new individual arise by fusion of two sex or cells, gametes produced by the different individuals. So again, it is very much important step, because the two different individuals, when they combine together and make a new offspring, that offspring is containing much more variation than their predecessors. So that means it is much more prone to the evolution as compared to the asexual reproduction that happened before. And then there are the differentiated cells. These are composed of many different kind of cells: muscle cells, nerve cells, and epithelial cells, and so on. So if we see our body today, we have maybe more than 200 types of cells, and all of these cells are responsible for producing different type of chemicals and performing different tasks. So each individual therefore carries not one copy of genetic information, but there are millions of these copies. So if an organism is diploid, 2 per cell, and each cell contains different copies of its cells, and each cell is producing different set of RNAs, which are translating into different set of proteins, and each of these proteins make these cells different from all the other cells in the body, and they perform a differentiated and specialized function in a body of an individual. And then there are the colonial living. There were some organisms who developed the colonial living as well. Most organisms are solitary. That means they are living uh, on their own, interacting with others of their species, but not dependent on them. Other animals, notably ants, bees, wasps, and termites, live in colonies in which only a few individuals reproduce. So, in these colonies, there are some queen wasps or queen ants, queen bees, which are laying their eggs. Other are just workers who help them, and there are the males which are responsible for the reproduction with the queen. And all of these make a colony, right? So, actually, the queen is a sibling of all the worker ants that they are there in the colony, and they are working together to progress their gene pool into the next generation. And these are also called super organisms. A whole colony is having the division of labor, just like we have the division of labor among ourselves. So these are termites, bees, ants. These are called super organisms, or the colonies of them are called super organisms. And then there is the last step, which is the step 8, the primate societies, human societies, and origin of language and consciousness. We started speaking, we start questioning our existence. We had some consciousness, we had mind, we have ability to think and process. These are the things which are we have some innate ability to do these, and these are the things which are called much more advanced adaptations in the history of life. And this is a decisive step in transition from ape to human society, and was probably the origin of language, which led in turn to consciousness and human being. We started speaking, and afterward we started speaking with thinking, and that is called consciousness. So all of these things we have discussed about the diversification of life. And today we end our the first major portion of this course, which is called paleontology. And from the next topics we will be discussing about the zoogeography or the biogeography in details in the rest of the course.